So my talk is about electrification at CSA. So first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to John and the team for a great event. I think it's a really good way of the industry coming together and opportunity to share knowledge and go forward. So my presentation is going to be about our journey towards battery-powered fleet at the CSA Mine. So first we'll go through the conditions and the problems we have, the journey we took and where we are today. So most of you have heard of Glencore. So we're part of the Glencore business with operations throughout Australia and overseas. Glencore's obviously got the coal division here, we've got nickel, we have the zinc division. We're part of the copper division with operations at Ernest Henry, Mount Isa and the Townsville refinery. So we have about 18,000 people employed throughout Australia. So we're obviously quite a big operation. In terms of Cobar and CSA Mine, so Cobar is about 4,000 people, about 500 k's west of Sydney. And so CSA employs about 600 people at CSA Mine. And we also have operational leases to the north and south of Cobar. And Cobar is also home to 3 other mines, Peak, Allura, Endeavour and Tritton Mine, and the Hera Mine as well, a bit further south. So it's a multi-commodity area with a real mining history there. In terms of the CSA Mine, we've got about 150 years of mining history in Cobar. The CSA Mine was first discovered in 1871 and mining started in the 1900s up until 1940 when there was a shaft fire. CSA Mine gets its name from the Cornishman, Scotsman and Australian who found it. And mining was recommenced in 1961 with reserves down to about 1,000 metres below the surface. And then the shafts was started in 1963 and production in 1965. Glencore took ownership in 1999 from when the mine went into receivership at the time. And we're currently mining an ore body at the QTS North, which was discovered in the 1970s. So this is quite an interesting slide. So while I was researching this, I had a walk through the Heritage Park in Cobar. And as engineers, we always think we're at the cutting edge and we're doing smart things and we're really, we're smart people. And then I walked through the Heritage Park and there's a electric powered loader with a 14 tonne, which is a MESA, which was designed by CSA engineers and engineered in Adelaide. It's a 1,000 volt electric powered loader, which had an overhead power line. So, and then you've got the bottom photo is the guys in Sweden last month with our new 14 tonne battery powered loader, looking at the same problems we had over 25 years ago, which they fixed then, as we're doing now. So that machine was in the late 1980s, was introduced into CSA, electric loader, and here I am today talking about exactly the same thing. So CSA, we're a very deep mine, so we're 1.8 kilometres below the surface, so we're the second deepest mine in Australia after Mount Isa copper. We've got a shaft down to about the 900 metres level and then we truck for the rest of the way. So the truck's about a 6 kilometre round trip from the bottom to the top. The colours there are our mine life, next 4 years of production. So we've got the QTS North on the left and the Central on the right. We've got about 6.5 million tonnes in reserve at the end of 2018 at 3.8% copper. So we're actually one of the highest grade copper mines in the world and one of the second highest in Australia. And we've got a high ventilation requirement. So those pictures there are showing the ventilation fans. We're pumping through about 750 cubic metres a second of air and have 20 megawatts of chillers. Our ground conditions are about 56 degrees. The rock is 56 degrees temperature. We've got the auto compression because we're taking it down 1.8 kilometres. Then we've got the diesel, electrical, so it ends up being quite an issue. So while we're doing a life of mine planning, we reviewed what's going on with our mine. We've got those trucks, so I'll show you the coal guys there. So we've got 12 of these 60-tonne trucks, either Epiroc or Sandvik trucks. We've got 8 loaders, 18-tonne loaders, Volvos, 5 jumbos, a couple of Simbas, 4 cable bolters, 5 diamond drill rigs, 35 light vehicles. So there's a lot of gear all running around down there. So they're all running on DPF filters. They're all getting to the end of their life in terms of hours. The trucks are all sitting at 48,000 hours. They need to be changed out in the next sort of 3 to 4 years, and the loaders are the same sort of story. So whatever decision we make going forward with our fleet change, we're going to have to live with for the next 8 to 10 years. So that was another driving part of this conversation. So part of our life of mine plan, we looked at what's going forward with our mine. So the slide here is showing the ventilation requirement to meet the life of mine requirements for ventilation. So I've got about a 12-year mine life on current drilling. And first up, it showed in the next 4 years, we need to do something immediately. So Glencore committed to a $65 million ventilation program where we added a new intake shaft to depth to about 1.2 kilometres below the surface, which has commenced today, and the raised bores will be spinning in Q1. So that was done, and that got us through. Then we realised that to meet the minimum airflow requirements, that got us to 1,000 cubic metres a second. With the depth and the effects of auto compression, we're going to have to put our hands in our pockets in 2025, 2026 to start another upgrade project to depth with another return-away system and chillers and everything that goes with it. And then suddenly it's looking unviable to move that amount of air around with 12 trucks, 9 loaders, everything else going down there. So decision was made that, what's the other way of what else can we do? And on the back of that was the chilling problem. So as I said, we've got 20 megawatts of chillers today in summer with our 45-degree summer temperatures. So our modelling said we're going to upgrade to 26 megawatts of cooling this summer, our next 2 summers, but going forward again, we'll need to upgrade again. And then when we looked at what we've got today, we did a vent sim model, and this is showing a heat map of the temperatures down there with a couple of our levels we're mining at the moment, so about 1.7, 1.8 kilometres below the surface, 8610 level, with a couple of trucks on the decline, and it showed that at our return, we're getting up to 32 degrees wet bulb in the modelling. So it's currently quite warm down there. What can we do? So obviously we can't get rid of the ground temperature. We can't get rid of the auto compression. The electrical gear is sort of there. So the only option is really to get rid of the diesel. So what can we do? Otherwise, we're up for another $60, $80 million for a ventilation upgrade project with an ongoing power cost for that ventilation. So we said, righto, our biggest user is trucks. So we went around the world to Glencore, who nickel rim operation. So those guys are currently developing 2 mines with no diesel in those mines. So they are committed to doing that. So we spoke to those guys. And then we realised our biggest user of diesel is the 6020 trucks. They're burning 1,200 litres a day, and we've got 12 trucks. So we're burning a lot of diesel down there just on moving dirt. So the process was, what can we do? So obviously the slide there shows diesel efficiency versus electrical efficiency. So diesel was 30% efficient, the rest is going as heat, whereas electrical efficiency is 70 to 80% with regen. So it's obvious that that was a good way of getting rid of our heat. So at the time, in 2017, we said, right, let's go and see what's out there in terms of battery electric trucks. So Artisan at the time had just released a 40-tonne battery truck, and then we spoke with Caterpillar, Epiroc, Sandvik, Komatsu about what's out there in terms of trucks. And the realisation was that the trucks can't do what we're asking them to do. Even with battery swap technology, the batteries weren't really at a stage to do us there. So we said, righto, we need to do a loader. So we'll investigate what we've got in terms of loaders, and it's better suited with the time we can charge them and take them back and this duty we're asking them to do. So we targeted the Canadian operations who have got a legislation to remove diesel from their mines, and spoke to their Glencore, and we realised that all the machines at the moment are small 8-tonne machines, and we need an 18-tonne loader. So they're targeting the Canadians and the South Americans where they're mining at altitude, saying that the Epiroc and Artisan have got over 60,000 hours with these battery machines at these operations. So they were basically proven technology at that size. And we also realised that the technology was rapidly evolving. So we wanted to not commit to purchasing a battery and treat it more like you would with a Ryobi drill. So you buy the drill, and as you get a better battery, you go down to Bunnings and put a better battery in it. We're going to do something similar. So as the batteries get better, we will pursue better batteries and keep the drill, keep the skin. So the decision journey was we went to the over to Canada. That's a picture over there in Canada to speak with those guys. The Canadians have really, and Glencore over there, have really driven that. They've developed some operating standards which you can download online, which really demonstrate and have driven the industry forward. We went to Epiroc and witnessed their ST14. We could see that the machine was based on existing technology. It was based on existing motors, which are out of trains, existing inverters, which were used in industry. The batteries from Northvolt, which were based on a Tesla 2170 cell design, which was pretty well standard. So we could see that this, though it was new technology, it was using mature elements to bring it together. So then we were going to leverage, or buy that. We put an order in for the world's first 14-tonne loader at the time, and then we were going to leverage with Glencore, who have committed to using the CAT 1700 machine and other operations within Glencore, and benchmark against each other to see how they were going. We're still doing that today. And then work towards buying an 18-tonne machine. We've got a seat at the table now. We're buying the 14-tonne machine. We've got a seat at the table. We can direct where it's going next, and then look at the rest of our fleet and the trucks by 2023. So obviously, when we did the first 14-tonne loader, it was actually quite surprising. We expected it to be a lot more expensive. So as I said, we made the decision not to buy the battery, and actually the purchase price of the loader, diesel versus electric, was about the same price, which is quite surprising. The servicing costs were a huge benefit. There was no air filters, oil changes, radiator fluids, the service interval we could push out. So when we did the total cost of ownership, those costs dropped right down. The fuel cost was about the same as hiring that battery. So really it was a zero-sum game in terms of input for power. Vent and chilling was really where we could save a lot of money, but we didn't use that in the total cost of ownership. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but this is why we're doing this project. And the other costs, which were sort of hard to quantify, like DPM, nanoparticles, noise, vibrations. As you know, you can go higher and higher tier engine motors, and it's going to generate more and more heat, but the nanoparticle was going to be there, and as a social licence to operate, we felt that that was something which had a value behind it. When you look at the battery loaders, it's not as simple as just saying, I want a battery loader. We need to consider, how are you going to charge this mentality? So are you going to have an onboard charger, or are you going to dump the battery and put a new battery in like you do with the Ryobi? So there's the two ways of doing that. And then when you go, all right, I've chosen to a battery swap technology, do you use a crane to lift it out? Or the picture there is of the Sandvik Artisan battery, which has a hydraulic system which dumps it on the ground, and you come back and pick it up with an onboard battery. And then we go to the cell chemistry. There's different types of cell chemistry. You've got we're going for an NMC chemistry, and there's a trade-off. You can get more stability with reduced performance and a reduced charge rate versus a higher specific battery using more a higher risk, I guess, of ignition or a fire. And then we've got the motor location. So some of the manufacturers are looking at motors within the wheel hubs, or you can have a motor centralised as you do with a diesel motor. Then the hire versus buy batteries, as I spoke about, and then the big one for us is also what sort of plug do you plug it in with. So we're looking at a 150 kilowatt charge rate, and the CAT machine, as they've shown online, is looking at a 700 or 1 megawatt charge rate. So how do you charge an existing mine where your substation's already in place and your power infrastructure in place at a higher rate? So if you're developing a new mine, you can put a dedicated substation to charging this machine, or do you want to do a slower rate? So there's a few trade-offs we had to look at when we were looking through this. So I want to talk about the batteries next. So when people hear about battery loaders, the first thing everyone thinks is the Samsung phone when they were catching light, and the Samsung laptops when they were all going up, and the scooters when people's houses burnt down from the scooter. So the first step is this is a very different battery to your Samsung phone. It's not a single pouch type battery. This is the 2170 batteries, the same as in a Tesla Model 3. Individual batteries, and then we place 672 of those batteries, I guess, in a sandwich, in a layer of bread, and then they go into a sub pack, which is very much like a power pack in the Tesla power pack. Each of those sub packs are individually fused. Each of those cells are individually fused. Each of those sub packs are individually fused and cooled. So there is a thermal runaway. They're contained in there. And the beauty of the Epiroc program is that each of those sub-packs could be scaled up or down depending on the application. So the loader will have 4 in it, or you can put it in a jumbo with 2. But the idea is that we've got a guaranteed availability on that sub-pack or that battery, and it goes away if there's a problem, and we get a new one as a replacement. So it's zero maintenance for us. There's no risk of working with a charged battery there for us. The OEM is going to manage that. So in terms of the safety onion was discussed before, so I just want to talk about that. So the safety onion in terms of how we're going to manage the safety, we've got layers there. So we've got the safe self-chemistry, we've got the small cells, the 2170 cells, we've got the fuse and overpressure there, we've got the thermal insulation between the layers, 3 levels of battery management, we've got fire suppression. The box itself is made of thick steel with a coolant plate on the top, so with a battery loader going into tele-remotes. If we do have a rock fall, it's going to be protected from a rock fall by the steel casing and the rock hitting the first of all, the sacrificial cooling pack. So there's multiple layers there, and it's been demonstrated that if a cell catches on fire, it won't then propagate to the rest of the cells. So from our risk assessment, we can show that we believe that it is probably safer than a diesel machine in a lot of ways. In terms of charging, it's a bit like your mobile phone. That's the operators don't get the full use of that battery, so they only see 80% of it, and like your iPhone, it goes red when it gets to 20%, and we also control the life of the battery by the operators only being available to use 75% of the available charge in that battery. So even though that we said in there it's a 250 kilowatt hour battery, we're only going to see 80% of that, 75% of that theoretical charge. So performance, so this is sort of theoretical performance. So the ST14, so the guys went over to see it, hasn't had many hours on it at the moment, but basically the loader has shown to work very efficiently, but we're going to get about 4.5 hours on flat on that loader for an 1.5 hour charge. And we can sort of see about a 20% increase in production because of the increased power and speed that thing can get accelerating and digging into the muck pile. The other big thing too is we've done tests in Canada with a 1300 CAT versus a 1300 BEV battery powered loader. So they did exactly the same cycle and they demonstrated 9 times less heat, and that was at Nickel Rim South operations. 9 times less heat from the equivalent workload. So there's a massive saving in heat for us underground. So in terms of the loader, this is sort of a long section through the loader. The first thing you see is a big whopping battery at the back of it. So that's going to really assist in when you're digging into a muck pile, the weight at the back. It's then got a 200 kilowatt drive motor and then a separate hydraulic motor. So the power to the drive is completely independent of the hydraulics. It's a much simplified transmission with no torque converter, no reverse gear, and I've obviously got the battery swap there option. In terms of the machine, we sent the guys over to Sweden last month, hoping to see the machine, which is about to be put on the boat to visit, come and stay in CSA. So the guys got to see it, a machine, and drive the machine and the pictures there in Sweden, and then went over to the Orebro mine in Finland to see it in operation. The guys found the machine to be very similar to the battery. This is the diesel machine. The levers were all in the same spot. It was a slightly different bogging mentality that when you dig in the muck pile, when you drive a diesel machine, you want to put the foot flat on the accelerator. You don't need to do that. It just spins the wheels because you've got all the power you need with the battery pack there. So they were very quiet to operate, obviously, as you expect. But I guess the problem we've got at the moment is the battery. The machine itself is good. There's some commissioning issues with the battery, so we're looking at May for delivery. It's got some software issues and some internal connection issues with the Northvolt system, but we're still quietly confident that we can overcome that and have a machine to operate efficiently. This is the machine. This is actually our machine in the go bay. This is the hydraulic motor, the 200 kilowatt traction motor. I said that was taken from a train. This is the electronics. The beauty is the plugs are all different, so the sparkies can't plug the wrong plug into the wrong hole because they're fit for purpose. It's got automatic discharge, so it can't electrocute people once we've done that. In terms of the battery, it's got a CCS2 plug, as I spoke about, and then they've got 2 connection points to the battery from the machine there, so it's quite a simple process to unplug 2 plugs to pull it out. And there's the battery itself, about 6-ton battery sitting in the back there. picture on the right is a vertical view, and you pick it up with the orange lifting points, and there's 2 levers you can pull out at the bottom to release it from the carrier. And the charging, that's the other beauty of the system. We've gone to ABB for a CCS2 charging system. That charging system is used on the highways today. If you drive between here and Melbourne, you'll pass a couple of places using CCS2 on the side of the highway. They're proven technology. As I said, we're looking at a 150 kilowatt charge rate, so it'll fit with our existing infrastructure. And we're looking and working with ABB to develop a mine-specific charging system. So we're looking at, can we treat it like a jumbo box, where you just plug it in with a standard mine plug. It's mine rated going forward, so we can really use this like we would a jumbo box. 3 minutes. Okay, so there's 2 slides left, Gareth. So first of all, we did the risk assessment. So we said we got delivery in May. We were looking at February. So I said we're no longer the world's first. Caterpillar's beaten us to the punch. They got their 1700 coming in Q1 into Sudbury. So congratulations to those guys. So we're going to basically build it up from starting the crusher first, next to the workshop, near cranes. We're then going to intensify it, take it down to a second crusher low in the mine, start doing development, start stoping, and then we'll put it on tele remotes and go from there. We're going to continue leveraging against what Glencore are doing globally, learning together. We just had the tender close for 2 18-tonne machines close on Friday, so we're just about to push the button on buying 2 18-tonne loaders. And then we're going to start buying battery trucks in 2023. So going forward, this is where we as an industry can work together. So we're pushing, every time someone speaks to me, I first say, what sort of plug has it got in it? It needs to have a CCS2 plug. We've got the VHS versus Betamax happening here if we don't, and I want to have the VHS. So I guess the other one is that Glencore and Vale have come up with a global standard for, I guess, the introduction standard to their mines in Canada. How, as we as an industry, what do we want as an industry for our mines? We've got different conditions to those guys. They're generally shafts. So let's come up with a standard to what we want to do. The other one is the MDG-15. Obviously, doesn't really cover lithium-ion batteries. Ventilation and reuse. We're not really polluting the air anymore. It's just dust. There's no heat or diesel fumes. And the fire risk. How do you manage a fire with an IP-rated battery pack and an IP-rated motor? Is it more 24-volt issues and friction issues than traditional turbo fires and hydraulic fires, where potentially there isn't anything at the flash point of that on that? So we need to treat it differently than we would a diesel machine. And this is my last slide, just talking about how we can work together in industry. So I guess we need to engage the OEMs. And I guess this is, I think, relevant for the coal guys in the room, that I guess, it's an IP-rated machine. Can this be used for coal? We need it for Australian conditions. At the moment, they're targeting high altitude, small machines. Even last week, the guys were speaking in Sweden to the OEMs. Their belief is 60-tonne trucks are used by contractors in Australia. No one's going to buy a battery-powered truck. So we challenge that, and we need to have 60-tonne trucks. A lot of the mines, I don't know, Tritton's looking at ITs, which are battery-powered, light vehicles. I think Katie is doing some trials there. I guess keep the communication open. We want to learn from each other. Global standard pantograph is where I really want to go to as well. So the trucks need to be on a pantograph. So we can't get to the surface to the bottom of the mine based on a single battery power. Even a swap takes too long, whereas a pantograph, with a smart type pantograph, where we treat it the same as we do with a jumbo plug, where has a two-way communication with that, so that we don't have a live buzz bar above our heads, so we can then, the truck talks to the pantograph, says I need power, turns on the power and goes ahead, and we have it in such a way that when contractors bring to site, they can then use that pantograph as well. So, and that's why we're sort of finishing it where I started. We went into this process because we needed to get rid of these 1,200 litres of diesel we're burning each day in the trucks, and we need to electrify trucks by 2023. Okay, that's my end of slides, so I'll save the questions to the end.